Hello, welcome. Today is the 27th of June, 2025. I'm going to talk about Amalek. This beautiful sunny day in England, I thought that perhaps is not the most appropriate topic to talk about, but I'm going to tell you the reason why. I've just heard became aware really, that in 2023, when the war in the Middle East started, I mean the the war as it is today, uh, of the state of Israel against Gaza, um, there was two young people, a young man and a young woman, who called themselves Stilla Agnes, Stilla Agnes. And they made a video for TikTok, a song for about a minute and a half, called Harbu Darbu. This was going to become almost an anthem in the forces, in the army, the military forces, in the military in Israel. Very, very popular. It became viral, over 10 million views. And I went to it, and I won't bother you with what it says. It is available on YouTube. But it is, well, you can imagine calling the opponents of Israel, let's say, a bunch of rats coming out of their hole, trying to intimidate us. You fools, take my word, there won't be any forgiveness. And then to those who may not necessarily be in Gaza, but for those who um, dare say free Palestine, they say, who do you think you are, uh, coming here and yelling free Palestine? Then he spits and he proceeds to say, you sons of Amalek. Okay. It says many more things, but I can't say them here. The spitting, I remember when I heard that, I remember a Catholic priest, the traditional priest who goes around with wears a cassock, and saying that he had just been to New York for the first time in his life, and he was very surprised because people were spitting at him wherever he went. He said, I've never seen so many, not at him directly, but on, spitting on the floor. But as he passed by, people would be spitting all over the place. He said, I never saw so many people. Then he figured it out. Oh, it's because of me on my cassock, kind of thing. But in any case, the important thing here is you sons of Amalek. In other words, not only those who are Amalek, but if you sympathize with Amalek, you too are the seed of Amalek. Okay. We also heard Amalek, Prime Minister Netanyahu, referring to Amalek, and he's not the only one, his government, to refer to Amalek. Okay, so I went back, I said, I thought, okay, there is something wrong here because I can't accept that God, my initial reaction, not knowing anything about it, my initial reaction was, I find it almost impossible that God would just tell a group of people, go and kill everyone, kill your enemies, children, women, whoever, just kill them, exterminate them. There has to be something here. And are you sure it's in there? Yes, it is in the Bible. It's in Genesis. Okay, so I've been looking at the Bible and trying to see in what context this is. The Bible indeed refers to Amalek. Uh, Don't panic, I'm not going to start reading the Bible, just a few verses here and there, but just to put things in context. In Genesis, Genesis 36, verse 12, it does say, and Thama was the concubine of Eliphaz, the son of Esau, and she bore him Amalek. These are the sons of Ada, the wife of Esau. There seems to be two genealogies somewhere, which I can't quite. Then the Genesis proceeds to read, the genealogy, and these were in verse 15, and these were dukes of the sons of Esau, the sons of Eliphaz, the firstborn of Esau, Duke Theman, Duke Omar, Duke Sepho, Duke Jenes, and they go on. Okay, all right. And then in Exodus, let me see which one it is. 8:17. Hold on, let me find it here. Yes, Exodus 17, 8-16. This is when it's a little bit more clear. And Amalek came and fought against Israel in Rephidim. And Moses said to Joshua, choose out men and go out and fight against Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill, having the rod of God in my hand. Joshua did as Moses had spoken, and he fought against Amalek. But Moses and Aaron and Hur went up upon the top of the hill. And when Moses lifted up his hands, Israel overcame, won the battle. But if he let them down a little, Amalek overcame. And Moses' hands were heavy, so they took a stone and put under him, and he sat on it. And Aaron and Hur stayed up his hands on both sides. And it came to pass that his hands were not weary until sunset. And Joshua put Amalek and his people to flight by the edge of the sword. Remember these words, by the edge of the sword. And the Lord said to Moses, write this for a memorial in a book, and deliver it to the ears of Joshua, for I will destroy the memory of Amalek from under heaven. And Moses built an altar, and called the name thereof the Lord my exaltation, saying, because the hand of the throne of the Lord and the war of the Lord shall be against Amalek from generation to generation. Okay, so from generation to generation to fight Amalek and the seed of Amalek, really. So then in Deuteronomy 25:17-19, it says, remember what Amalek did to thee in the way when thou camest out of Egypt, how he met thee, and slew the hindmost of the army, who sat down, being weary, when thou wast spent with hunger and labor, and he feared not God. Therefore, when the Lord thy God shall give thee rest, and shall have subdued all the nations round about in the land which he hath promised thee, thou shalt blot out his name from under heaven. See thou forget it not. Okay, so all that is based on these and perhaps other passages in the Bible. Okay, reading a little bit more, I'm still sort of not quite understanding what is going on here. So it seems that different tribes were fighting the Jews, or the original name was Jabiru or something like that. Anyway, the name became Jew. Different tribes were fighting one another. The Canaanites, the Philistines, so wars of territory or political wars of many, many kinds, as wars are. But the difference with Amalek is that they fought, as he said, from the hindsight. In other words, they fought from the rear, and at the rear would be always the most vulnerable, the weakest. Women, children, handicapped would be at the rear. And it was wrong to attack an army. If you have to fight, fight. But to go in deceit, really, um, fighting or killing the most vulnerable of them. And the way I understand it is that to destroy Amalek really does not mean one specific group of people, because Amalek then became a name for the enemy in the Jewish mindset. The enemy was Amalek. They sort of stopped being one specific tribe, and that name was assigned to everybody who they consider an enemy. But I understand the word of God to say not so much against one people because they are fighting you, one people because they are of this particular tribe, but to actually fight because it was vile and wicked the way they fought, attacking the most vulnerable. Yeah, the way they fought rather than who they were as a tribe. Okay, it is not there with the other tribes. It's against Amalek because of the way it fought. Now, this is the problem I have here. The problem I have here is that then this word Amalek would be used not only for that particular ancient tribe, but against, as I said, against the enemy, whoever the enemy might be, is called Amalek. And if you are not a direct enemy fighting against them, but you are supporting those or whatever, you are also Amalek. You are also the seed of Amalek. In other words, it has been extended to go beyond the territorial tribe to those against us, those who fight against us. Okay, but who defines the enemy? They do. So I say that you are my enemy. Even if you didn't attack me, you are my enemy. I decide that. I decide who my enemy is. Perhaps sometimes you fought me, perhaps sometimes you didn't fight me, or perhaps you are empathetic and sympathetic with the person who is fighting me. You are Amalek too. Therefore, the right of extermination, the right to exterminate. And that then is by divine mandate. I decide because I see them, in fact, or perhaps I imagine them, I decide who my enemies are. They therefore become Amalek, and I can exterminate you because of divine mandate. This is extending it, to my mind, a little bit too far. And speaking not as a Jew, because I'm not, speaking as a Catholic, I think that that is almost a blasphemy. Because to extend this meaning, to attribute this meaning, to change the original meaning to anyone who is against me, is to assign to God injustice in my mind. And that to me is a blasphemy. In the case of the Persians, for example, who always helped the Jews, throughout, I mean, going back to Babylon, they would rescue them. The Persians would rescue the Jews from Babylon. They were free to go there. And other times in history, I cannot recall right now. But the Persians helped them tremendously in their history and in their struggles. They could always go to Persia. My point is that they could not be Amalek then, but they are Amalek now. They are Amalek now, and they have to be destroyed because they are sympathetic with the direct Amalek that they have there. How is it that they are Amalek now, but they were not Amalek then? That is why they are interpreting the words of the Bible in a way that, to me, is blasphemous. And if you don't agree with what they're doing, then you are Amalek too. This is problematic, actually, if we take it seriously, and it should be taken seriously. No wonder that there are many Jewish people who disagree with what is happening. Because if you look at it from a moral perspective, you cannot accept that what is happening is morally right. Anyway, that is my contribution to Amalek. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.